was touted as one of the projects that was set to put Rwanda on course to become the ICT powerhouse of the continent. With this, the idea was to raise a generation of young people who are ICT literate. However, the One Laptop Per Child program has been marred by what has been called mismanagement, and its sustainability and success has been brought into question. The recent Auditor General's report warned that if the implementation of this program that was aimed at putting laptops directly into the hands of children was not looked into, its success would be brought into question. Hello and welcome. My name is Flora Kaitesi, and this is Prime Time Live, and this is going to be the context of our discussion today. I'm happy to be joined by Eric Kimenyi, who is the National Coordinator of the One Laptop Per Child program. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
We have Valence Mushinzimana, who is the Deputy Headmaster at Lycée de Kigali School. It's great to have you on the show. And of course, Ramai Sivo, I think I would be right to call you a commentator on current affairs.
Yeah, that would be good enough.
Great. It's awesome to have you on the show. Now, I'll start with you, Eric. If I could put on my hat as an editor for just a few seconds and say this, our newsroom has pursued the issue of the One Laptop Per Child program, especially regarding the fact that most of these laptops are in school shelves gathering dust, so it has been said. So my question to you is this: has the management or the implementation failed?
Thank you, Flora. Let me start by telling you a bit about what the One Laptop Per Child program was intended to do from the beginning. It's a program that was set up by the government of Rwanda, that was then rolled out by the Ministry of Education with the intent of introducing technology into primary schools so that kids can have access to technology, learn different subjects through those devices. So back again to your question about the management and everything, I believe we need to look at the whole ecosystem of the program is. Ourselves as members of the Rwanda Education Board, our duty is to deploy these laptops to the schools, train the teachers, and provide assistance to make sure the program is flowing on properly. Mm-hmm. There are some schools where we have laptops that have been kept in shelves, like you say, but there are also some other schools which actually use these laptops.
But why have we had those cases where the laptops have been kept in shelves? Aren't they supposed to be given to the students? What was the problem? Where did the link break?
Like I was intending to explain more. Most of the schools where we have cases where the laptops have been shelved, like it's been reported, not all the devices were shelved. What happened was some of the schools pick a few laptops and reuse them. So it led us to look at another approach of how we can, instead of having these laptops be shelved, why don't we get some of these laptops and give them to other schools so that we help the management of the schools. These were coming from the information we're getting from the head of schools, the district education officers. So we came in with another approach, reduced the devices so that the devices that are used are actually used properly.
I'm still not getting what the problem was, because if now you reduce the devices, then where is the impact?
We are not reducing the impact. We want the devices that are used to actually be used. Mm-hmm. The ones that are not used to then be taken to other schools. We have schools that have approached the program with positive attitude and used the laptops. We have those other schools that tend to leave some few laptops, which is why those reports that we get from the Auditor General's report shows that some are kept. But if the report actually went in to show which schools actually use these devices, you would realize that the majority of the schools use the devices compared to those few other ones that keep them.
There has been statistics that say that over 200,000 computers were distributed and about 1,000 lost and 10,000 distributed to schools without electricity. Are these statistics you can confirm?
200, and the actual deployment numbers, we stand at just over 267,000 in 930-something schools. The amount of laptops that were lost could be around those figures, which is true, but we've taken measures we do a count, we do an an inventory check with the schools, where we make sure that the laptops that were delivered, are they the same that are still at the schools? If not, we take these cases to the local authorities, the police, the local leaders to help us to follow up these cases. And we've had scenarios where some devices have been returned to the schools. Some teachers or some head of schools, cases are ongoing. With regards to schools without electricity, that is not actually true, because there is no school with OLPC devices that does not have electricity. At a certain point, a couple of years back, that mistake happened. And this was mainly because of the information we got from the local authorities. But when we realized that mistake, we stood up and corrected it. We did not move the laptops
So it
away.
means the schools that do not have electricity are actually missing out. Let me bring in Valence to tell us, because there were issues about the teachers being trained and then moving to other schools, and tell us about the impact with the teachers, from the teachers' perspective.
Yeah, I think with the teachers, we need the skills.
Please speak up.
We need the skills.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you cannot give what you don't have. So some teachers, maybe in some schools, did not have the skills. They are not computer literate, not that as such, but maybe did not have enough skills. But with our students that we receive today.
But Rwanda Education Board says that they were trained. So are you saying that the training was not effective?
Yeah, maybe they need more training on daily basis. Also, they should have those laptops. You know, you training, you need to practice. So they should have computers. I think now the Ministry of Education is distributing computers to teachers. They are encouraged to have computers, their own computers. So
but this program was initiated in 2008.
All right.
It's been 10 years. Rama, please come into this discussion. We need to clarify that issue of it's the teachers who have been trained, they need more skills. So if they do not have the expertise, then what are they teaching the children? What have they been teaching the children?
I think you have to go into the overall history and structure of one laptop per child. This was first thought up in 2006 when they thought that the one thing that is missing in third world countries is technology, and technology can bridge the gap which gives advantage to first world countries. So the problem started initially first even with the design of the computer. Everyone wanted something, then they wanted different software and different hardware. Then we came up with a compromise of the design that we have now. But it has certain fatal flaws, like it doesn't have memory, it doesn't have certain other things. So the problem was that, imagine something designed in 2006, today it's almost obsolete, because you know how even a phone from last year, it looks dated. So the initial cost was meant to be $100. It went up to $200. But now you have competing brands which even have them at $35. There's an Indian produced model called the Akash, which costs $35 and is a kind of like a tablet. So there's been a lot. So there are two things going on here. We are trying to introduce IT into classes, into every child, and then there's this specific brand and a specific project called One Laptop Per Child. Now, maybe there are other ways and to make it better, because studies which were done in Peru, because 80% of all the laptops distributed have been in South America, particularly Uruguay and Peru. In Uruguay, it was a very good success, and they rolled out 500,000.
But before you continue, I'd like to pick up on something with Eric that you said, that these are laptops that were designed in 2006. So, I mean, what are you doing about it? Are we still giving these children outdated technology? Is that what it is?
The original form, the original idea came up back then, but there are newer models coming out. Currently we have about over 4 different models that we're distributing to schools. Yes, some of them do not have enough memory. Not that they do not have memory at all, but not enough memory. But the way they are designed, they have extra USB ports where extra devices could be used for storage. So in terms of design, yes, the initial versions came out back then, but the latest versions come out with newer processor speed, memory space, and everything like that. Just to mention a bit about the training, all OLPC schools that we deploy laptops to, all the teachers are trained. So in schools, secondary schools, we do not deploy laptops to secondary school. We only deploy laptops to primary schools, and all the teachers are trained. Maybe the issue might be some teachers, like you mentioned, some teachers tend to move, greener pastures, coming into town, different schools. So some
but if a teacher,
lose.
hold on a second, if the teacher is moving from one school to another, but they were trained to teach the children how to use those laptops, then shouldn't they be able to transfer the same skills that they have to another school? Isn't that the case?
Absolutely. That's
So
true.
moving is not a problem, is it?
It could be a problem because,
How?
like I mentioned at the beginning, everything comes down to the administration of the school. Some head of schools embrace the program, start using the program. When we began, there was no timetable slot for ICT as a course. There was
So are
nothing
you
like
laying
that.
the blame on the heads of schools who do not embrace the program?
Not entirely.
Do you think that's the case?
Not entirely.
Should we blame, who should we blame?
Not
Should we
really.
blame the
Not
heads of the
really.
schools who are not implementing the program?
Not really the heads of schools, but maybe the sensitization of those people who are supposed to implement the program. We need kind of ownership. You know, the program is there, but I need to own it and implement it.
Who needs to own it?
Everybody, all stakeholders, the teachers, the students have to feel that it is our program. Even the parents, they have to encourage the children that this is the program of everybody. So we need to own it. That is
So how
spirit.
do we, Rama, what do you think we should do in order to, I don't know how to call it, to provoke that ownership?
No,
How do you even
see-
tell
you
somebody
see,
you
what
need
they
to
have
own the
found-
program?
What they have found in these studies about one laptop per child, this is just a medium. A medium is just a medium. It depends on the message that you're pushing through that medium. We worked on the hardware and the software. We didn't match our curriculum. We didn't match our syllabus. We didn't provide extra content for that platform specifically. So for that reason, in countries where it hasn't worked, they found that it didn't have any noticeable effect on test scores. But in countries where, like Uruguay, where it had noticeable effects on the test scores, is where they develop specific content for this platform. Otherwise, you're just giving a kid Google and he's going to Google Beyonce and Rihanna, and they won't
You seem
learn
to agree
anything.
with what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think with the new curriculum that we have today, the competence-based curriculum, where the students have to do a lot of research, and they have to get 75 at least %. It is on their own site. So these students, they need really to use these computers to get information, to get knowledge, and to get whatever they can get. So it is in that sense that I want to mention that the new curriculum is in line with this program.
But now, Eric, and let me quote something else the Auditor General says, because the Auditor General gave a very grim picture of the management of the One Laptop Per Child program. And in the recent presentation of the 2015 annual report, he said the One Laptop Per Child popped up as one of the projects the government has invested in heavily. There's been heavy investment. So my question is, if it is not a question of money, then what is it?
I want to raise two topics like they mentioned. The first is ownership. On the side of REB, on the side of the Ministry of Education, what we do is deploy these laptops to schools, train the teachers, and then, like every other infrastructure in the schools, the head of schools, the teachers need to own the program, need to start using the program. At the beginning of the project, at the earlier stages, that component of ICT was not incorporated into the curriculum or the timetable. So there was always some sort of excuse, we do not have time to use it, even though some schools found time to use it. And we have examples of schools, I can name a few. And then the other schools that just don't find time for it or use just a few are the ones that, most of the ones that the Auditor General's report tends to focus on. Like I mentioned earlier, the report does not say any positive thing, what has been done, the coverage so far. It tends to want to show the other side of things,
So
which is fair enough.
Are you openly dismissing the Auditor General's report?
Not at all, not at all. Don't quote me wrong. What I'm saying is there should be a fair judgment of
So
what
you
the
think
program
REB
is.
has been judged unfairly in as far as the implementation and management of this program is concerned?
What I think is what REB has done so far is good enough in terms of we select the schools. I can sit here and tell you right now that there's no school with electricity in Kigali City that does not have the OLPC program, which is because we make sure that every school that electricity is covered. We train those teachers as well. Even right now as we speak, there are schools being trained within Kigali City. So when it comes to looking at the project and how it's performing, it would be better if all sides are looked at and if all stakeholders, like my colleague mentioned, if all stakeholders are put out there and they go through the whole system and
But
say.
we're having cases where the report also says that about 20 schools were visited and about 1,425 worth of about 203 million Rwandan francs. This is a lot of money which were not working, and they are in storage, and the Auditor General classifies that as idle assets.
What I would want to reiterate to that is, out of those 20 schools, is it all those 20 schools that have those laptops shelved? Another question would be, members of our team were part of the people that went to the Auditor General's team. They visited more than 20 schools. So if the report just picks out what is not working, then it definitely, there's no positive outcome from the report whatsoever.
So
even if we do it for how long?
Let's talk about the impact to the children, because at the end of the day, the idea, like I said in my intro, is to raise a generation of ICT literate people. So if there's a project like this that has been supported and given incredible amount of investment, then what happens? What do you think happens when something like this is not going according to plan?
You see, one of the misnomers that they had when they started this project was thinking it could somehow replace a teacher or augment them. But what this has proved is teachers are just as important. They are as important as they always have been. And it will not replace, it will not make a bad teacher good. You know, it will bring out whatever you are. So what they found is that in order to get some real benefit out of it, you have to do more training. In Peru, where it failed, teachers were being given 40 hours. I don't know, in Rwanda it must be more. But then already the teachers they're already computer illiterate, and they're just given 40 hours, and then they're meant to teach other people. So
what was the case for Rwanda? So what was the case for Rwanda?
What was the
timetable?
How much training did you get for the OLPC?
How much training do you get? How much training did the teachers get to be able to effectively transfer the knowledge to the students?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I can assist, because
Please.
I think he's from a secondary school. What we do when we train the teachers is we take 5 days in a week and we train them like regular school time. So that is in an hour we have in a school day we have at least 8 to 10 hours compiled. So if we time, I think it comes down to around 40 hours in a week, which is the normal time that the schools have during term time. So that is how long we train them. But we also, besides the training, we provide them with a training manual, and we give them contact so that in case there's any issues that may arise upon our departure to train other schools, we can be easily contacted. Maybe I should just also raise another point in terms of the curriculum and the content. At the beginning, when the ICT had not been integrated into the curriculum, OLPC introduced content. Like my colleague mentioned, content is the king of everything. It has to be there. We don't just want to just drop the devices there and then move off. Besides training ICT, because most of the teachers, like we know, do not have that much ICT skills. We give them an introduction, and then after that, while we were waiting for the integration into the curriculum, we introduced content, digital content for maths, English, and science. And we put this into 200 schools back then, and we have some more schools being rolled out at the moment. And these subjects were designed directly according to the curriculum, with the intention that if a teacher is going to teach maths, a particular subject, algebra, at a certain point he might want to demonstrate something. He wants to give them some illustration to show, besides writing on the board and everything, or science, to see how the heart works, the anatomy of the body. You would want to see, it's easier for kids to have that kind of visual memory. It assists.
So I'm thinking
everything.
then, if Rwanda Education Board has done all that to equip the teachers, what is the problem? Then it seems the problem is the teachers.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned before, maybe these
Because
teachers,
before you had raised the issue of skills.
yeah,
Yeah.
these
So
teachers, remember,
help us to understand what the problem is.
these teachers have been brought up in that old system where these computers were not there. So when something new is introduced, it is not everybody 100% who is going to own it and accept it. You know, sometimes there is a kind of resistance to change. That's why I said we needed to convince the people that this project must be owned and then trained, because training has to be regular. There's always something new coming up. Even the mobile phone we have today, tomorrow you find another brand with new things. So training must be there.
But it's been 10 years. Are they still resisting to change? What do you think, Rama?
I don't know. I think the initial idea was very, very plausible and very good, but then it needs to also link in with other stuff. Like, we're jumping to the digital revolution. 90% of Rwandans still don't have access to electricity. It would have even been better to do one radio per child, you know. So you can get a radio instead of pumping pop music all day. Imagine if you had 9 o'clock physics, 10 o'clock chemistry, 11 o'clock biology, all the way, just having lessons like that. So interactive learning, originally we thought is just to do with computers. All it is communicating with those around you and having direct access to knowledge. So I think we shouldn't limit ourselves to the one laptop per child, because there are so many other cheaper models out there. Like I said, this one costs $30, this one costs $200. There are now new models of $35. So if the objective is to bring IT into our schools, it should be any brand. It's like saying every Rwandan family should have a car as long as it's a Toyota. But there are other cars out there, and some are cheaper, some are better, some are more adaptable to people's needs. So the wider question of getting IT into schools, you know, there's so much more potential. One laptop should stay. It should link also. I'd love it if we had a radio station 24-hour just pumping knowledge.
Eric, is Rama's school of thought something you would conform to?
Yes, to some extent. We have seen other countries. An example could be Korea, where they have like a TV station that is just mainly giving out information or lessons. Teachers go out there and give out lessons. That could be one of the means that could supplement the program right now. One thing I also want to add is there has been recently an approved ICT in education policy, which will now go beyond primary schools. OLPC covers primary schools. So we've had students who finish primary schools using the laptops. They get into secondary schools, they do not have any access to devices, or even further down until maybe they choose a computer science related combination. So what this new policy is being introduced to do is to cover all levels of education, which is where my colleague would agree with. We now have secondary schools that are receiving laptops that are made in Rwanda, by the way. Laptops, and they're also trained so that there's some sort of continuation from primary school students having access regularly to moving on. And the same thing happens. Most of our schools are what we call group scolaires. It's a combined primary and secondary schools. Sometimes we have teachers who teach in primary, get promoted, teach in secondary schools. So if there's that continuous training, which will be part of this policy, it will help the smooth running of the program, and starting from the head of schools to the local district authorities to even security organs, in the sense of security, to know if there's a laptop, if they see it somewhere, they know it belongs to this certain school.
All right.
So there's plans to follow all of that through this new policy.
We'll come back after a short while to delve more into the effectiveness of the One Laptop Per Child program. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a minute. Remember, you can join the conversation by using our Twitter handle. It's at Flora Kaitesi. The hashtag is Primetime Live. You do not want to miss the next part of this show. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Awesome.
Welcome back. You're watching Primetime Live. My name is Flora Kaitesi. Remember, you can join the conversation by using my Twitter handle at Flora Kaitesi, and the hashtag is Primetime Live. We are talking about the one laptop per child. It's been 10 years now, and we're discussing whether it's been a success or it's been a failure. And we're getting mixed reactions from our panel. I'd like to look at our Twitter community right now who are tweeting. And Akumunu Atanaz says that is also asking the question about ownership. Who should own the one laptop per child program? Are there any lines of fault with the program, with the project rather? Anybody of you would like to respond to this one before I read another one? Or what, Rama, let me hear what you think.
Who should own it? I don't know. You see, it's a joint venture. It has to be a joint venture with outside.
It has to be joint ownership.
Joint ownership, because this technology transfer, we don't have this technology in Rwanda, so we will require outside people to come and help us with the technology. We learn it, and at first it has to be joint, but we are the ones who should own it the most.
I think before we go to Eric to tell us what should be done to enhance that ownership, there's somebody else here who says the Auditor General's report does not talk about the positive side. What has REB Rwanda done so far that is good?
Okay, thank you. Let me just flip back again to the ownership part. The ownership, the laptops are like every infrastructure that's provided to the schools. REB provides textbooks. REB provides classrooms. These are owned by the schools. Why not the devices? Because at the end of it, upon deployment, there's a contract that we sign with the head of schools on the transfer of ownership. Where we come in is in terms of support. So I believe the schools should own the devices, and then us as REB provide support, which we are very willing to do. In terms of the positive, we are here, we can happily say that we have deployed over 267,000 devices across the whole of the country in more than 930 schools. If we do very quick mathematics, we can see that we have an average of about 2 to 3 schools per sector in Rwanda with an OLBC schools. That is one achievement. We have trained over 5,900 teachers in all these schools on how to use ICT in class, basic introduction to ICTs. That is another achievement. We have schools where they're young programmers, because among the content that comes with the laptops, we have a program I want to call it an app. In the OLPC world, it's called Activities, where kids learn to program. This increases their problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and many other immediate skills that are picked, because the kid designs a program out of their own thought and ideas, decodes the program, finds out if there's any problem.
From which schools? From which schools? Because there's also the issue of teachers, like we talked about earlier, not being competent enough. And there were several districts that were pointed out, such as Chirehe, Gasabo, Kichukiro, Gichumbi, and Nyabihu. And, we're wondering, would this lead to the failure to actually realize the original objective?
In this district, even though there are some schools that do not, according to the report, that do not use regularly the laptops, there are also some other schools. Example is Groupe Scolaire Kichukiro. It's a school that is located in Kichukiro. We have kids who can sit down and come up with a program. We have schools like IPAC in Kimihurura. We have other schools outside Kigali, in Groupe Scolaire Byumba, Groupe Scolaire Ruhango, Groupe Scolaire Kayonza. Those are just a few where we can pick students. We've run some sort of assessment. We did something we call the National Scratch Day competition, where we get best kids across all the schools to sit down with their teachers, come up with ideas. And we have kids with programs that they did on different topics, environment, on nutrition, on the leadership of the country, the image of the country, different various topics. These are things that we have to show. But unfortunately, most of these things do not come out in the report. So,
but from what you're saying, so much has been done that is positive, but then there's also the report that shows that so much has not been done. There are questions about the implementation, about the management. But I'd like Valence to speak up about this issue of the teachers. And if REB has really done as much as he says, again, I'm asking, where is the problem? What do you think should be done to enhance the ownership? Because if we all agree that the ownership is the problem, then it has to start somewhere. If there's ownership from REB's side and there's ownership from other stakeholders, what should the teachers who come into direct contact with the pupils do?
Maybe, to start with, maybe I would ask if these computers are used in each lesson, because you can use those computers when he's teaching English, mathematics, French, or maybe some are waiting just for computer lesson, then to bring them in.
Okay, when we within the computers there are apps, applications that cover different subjects. The laptops run on open source, so these are easily downloaded. There's no fee for it. Within the package that we give them, there is all those apps in there. When we're doing the introduction to ICT, we also give them we show them how different apps can be used. For example, Wikipedia could be used in geography lessons. For example, there's an app that teaches you that when you type, it repeats what you type. So it kind of teaches pronunciation and English. And besides that, when we also introduce the digital content, this is interactive content that even though we haven't rolled it out to all the schools, there are plans ongoing to roll them to all the schools. So,
but I'm still coming back to you, Valence.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you go so easily.
Yeah.
I won't let you off the hook very easily.
So coming back, huh?
Yes, I need to know what teachers should do, because they are the ones who come into direct contact with the pupils.
Exactly. So, and then the ICT normally makes our work very easy as teachers. It is easy to teach when you have a computer and the kid also has a computer. Now what needs to be done is that we need to, I think there is a need of more training on the side of the teachers, so that maybe some may be trained, but the practice of the skills they got from those trainings maybe is kept to the minimum. So
is it the practice or the effectiveness of the training, Rama? What do you think?
I think, sometimes when people are not buying in or people are not, fully engaged in something, it might be because you're not being flexible enough, or it's not adaptable enough to their needs, or they haven't been sensitized to fully get it. Because maybe at first some teachers thought this was going to replace us, and I've heard that before. Like,
there was that fear.
Yeah, like within 5 years, none of us is even going to be here. They're just going to be in KISS programming, and so. Is letting teachers understand that this is a tool to help you teach, and like people who think that this is just a magic wand. That's the problem with the one laptop per child. People thought it was a magic wand. You just wave it, but there's so many steps, like he's explaining. There's so much complexity within it. There's so many steps and so many adjustments that you constantly need to make. So what I would say in that regard is maybe we need to sensitize teachers, make the system more flexible to fit in with what they're doing. Maybe even let teachers design their own lessons and so forth. So it's fully interactive like that. But then letting teachers know that this is not a threat to you. This is not eventually gonna, get rid of you. What this has shown is that we need teachers more than ever, because it makes teachers better. It doesn't replace them.
So how do we, from the perspective of REB, then how do we solve that? How do we keep that involvement of teachers compact?
This is all will come together within the new policy that's come out, the ICT in Education policy, because through this policy there's plans to do continuous trainings. Because at the moment, once we deploy the laptops, we go train the teachers and go to another school. The idea is that the teachers have enough knowledge to be able to start using it. It might not be to the master level or to the expert level, but they can be able to start using it. So part of this policy is to provide continuous training and also to engage the other stakeholders, like the head of schools. We've had cases where students complain that the head teachers or the teachers do not give them the laptops to use. Some kids just actually want to use them, even though it's out of class or even in class. So more sensitization is going to be involved in that within the policy, training as well, and within the sensitization, like a colleague mentioned.
But hold on a second. If we're talking about more training and more sensitization, there's the issue of training as many as possible. Getting so many numbers involved. But then, I'm curious to know what will be done differently, because this training has been there. So what do we do differently? I'll come back to you to tell us what you think what teachers think should be done differently to help them. But I'd like to hear from you, Eric. What will be done differently?
Yes, there's going to be an element of assessment, because now ICT is going to be a course. It has been introduced into the curriculum. There's going to be examinations. Schools will be measured upon performance in terms of how the students do at the end of the year or the term. So that is one major element that will be able to differentiate how things were done previously. Like you mentioned, we've been training, deploying, trying to sensitize, do some sensitization. But now when the assessment comes in, we'll be able to measure this school is not performing like school B compared to school A. What is the problem with school A? How can we be able to come in and help? So that is one major element that will change everything, and the continuation of usage of ICT as a tool in learning and teaching.
Do you think the new aspect of assessment will help in any way?
Yeah, I think it will help.
Or with the introduction of the ICT policy, maybe I should ask what do the teachers expect?
Maybe I think we have schools that train teachers for primary schools, the universities.
Yes,
the
teacher
former
training.
KIE. We have also TTCs
Yes.
that produce teachers for primary school. I think we need to include this program in their TTCs, in their curriculum, so that when they go, they are trained, fully trained.
Get every teacher trained.
So any teacher, whether one decides to go, whoever comes has the
same skills.
Same
That's
skills.
very good.
That will be very much of importance.
Rama, comment on this assessment approach Eric is talking about.
Yes, definitely. And that's one of the reasons why in some testing, like in Peru, they didn't find any discernible difference between schools which are using it and not using it. But that's because they hadn't changed their content and their curriculum, and then also their way of testing. This is a new knowledge, it's a new way of thinking, it's a new way of understanding. It's not the old way where you just cram 100 things, the capital of Zaire is Kinshasa. Now you have to understand how knowledge relates to other bits of knowledge. So for that reason, it would be very good if they could produce a standardized testing strictly for one laptop per child and for people who are involved in it, because it cannot be reflected in normal testing, because that's different type of learning. It's a new learning needs a new kind of testing. Hopefully even interactive on the computers themselves.
So moving forward, we're still talking about the new approaches, but who are the other stakeholders involved? Because there was also the issue of the programming. Some of the computers were not programmed. Some, the technology is obsolete. So moving forward, what's new there in terms of changing the game to make sure the program is as effective as we would want it to be?
The stakeholders are the REB itself that deploys these laptops and continues to provide support. Schools, this involves the head of schools and the teachers, and then eventually the students and other institutions like the Auditor General's office, to be able to monitor this, what is going on. So with the new approach, we do not want the laptops to be seen as a tool for ICT. We want it to be more of a tool that is used in class for regular teaching. I think my colleague asked me a question earlier on, if this is just for ICT or for other subjects. So the plan is that once we get in through this policy, we'll get in more subjects that will be used, that the laptops will be used to teach in class, so that science can be taught, ICT even as a course can be taught, English or French or Kinyarwanda can be taught. So it's more of a wider approach. We're scaling up from how the OLPC started, just focusing on primary schools, to even go wider, to go into secondary schools and further on to universities, tertiary and other institutions. So that is the plan with this new policy, to spread it out and bring in more content and continuous training.
What will you do with the shelved laptops?
We have already started doing something with them. Within Kigali schools, we did a redeployment of these laptops, where, as you're aware, the schools, we have students that study in shifts. They use the same classrooms, use the same desks, same teachers. So the idea is now to create some sort of shared model, so that students in P4 will have a set number of laptops that they can be using and reshared. But then we'll create different accounts to be able to access their content through either cloud or a localized server. So we already did that with Kigali schools, whereby we went into the schools, looked at how many students they have, and then took the excess and put them in other schools, which is why I mentioned at some point that there is no school within Kigali right now that has electricity that does not have OLPC. So the idea is now to expand to other schools outside of Kigali, within other provinces and districts, and do similar efforts. Maybe one other stakeholder I should mention is the Ministry of Infrastructure, because we work with them towards providing more schools with electricity. Because that's the basis of us to provide the laptops, to deploy the laptops to schools.
And as we are approaching the end of our discussion today, I'd like us to talk briefly about the issue of understanding the impact. And I'd like to pick your brains on whether you think understanding the impact impacts the program itself. Because, like for example, for teachers, they need to understand exactly how far can raising a generation of ICT literate people go. What can it do for a country's economy? Let's talk a little bit about the issue of understanding the impacts.
Yeah, understanding the impact. One thing you have to understand, this is not a magic wand. And even this on its own will not produce an ICT generation. What produces an ICT generation is teaching mathematics at the highest level, at a globally competitive level. Any nation which produces the highest number of mathematics graduates is among the highest in programming and all those other things. So that is the key, teaching mathematics. Now, what you have to understand about the one laptop per child is that it teaches children how to learn. It doesn't necessarily teach them directly, but it gives you access, and then you can access that information. And how, depending on how curious you are, is how much you'll get out of it.
But I'm talking about, like, for example, teachers. They should be. Do you think they understand the overall impact of using of effectively implementing that kind of program?
For example, in Kenya,
because I imagine once you understand,
I mean, some teachers are even jealous that this could be their pay, that they could get better pay. For example, when they tried to introduce it in Kenya, and the teachers' union went crazy, they said, "No, we want a pay rise. You know, how about one laptop per teacher?" You know, so and they had a point. You know, I think eventually we'll have to do that. We'll have to give at least lecturers and teachers laptops. But yeah, so those are the kind of niggly problems that they have behind the scenes. Some teachers who don't understand, they're like, look, they're spending all this money on computers, why can't they feel undervalued.
Yeah.
So it's understanding, letting them understand that this is to make you a better teacher. And teachers should be in it for teaching, for learning and loving knowledge.
Do you agree with what he says?
Yeah, I
Is
think
there, first of all, tell us if there is indeed that issue of lack of understanding.
Yeah, there is. The rationale behind the project has to be well understood. And maybe some of us may be looking at the project in 2 to 3 years. We need to look maybe in 20 to 40 years. What will be the impact of what we are doing today? Because we need to produce nice literate people, but maybe the effects will not be coming just tomorrow, but in 20, 40, 50, 100 years.
So you like for you yourself, you are, if I should say, a senior teacher since you're the deputy headmaster. Then do you think you've been doing your job well? Or do you think the head teachers have been, do they themselves even understand in order to make the teachers understand?
It is the headmaster that has to raise that spirit of implementing the project. So if the headmaster or the head teacher, his level for understanding is low, then I don't think the teachers also can have the courage to go ahead.
Eric, as we wind up, understanding.
Definitely, understanding is one of the major aspects that has to be put into every stakeholder. From the side of the government, knowing what the schools need, the needs of the teachers, the support that is necessary, to the schools themselves. Now, once we deploy these laptops, what is the intent for it? We're not bringing ICT into the schools. We want it to be a tool in learning and teaching. And then the students themselves, once we give you this, once you have access to this, it's not just to go play games, or it is more for use in what the teacher is teaching you. And then obviously other stakeholders in terms of provision of electricity for schools, reports that are coming out, assessments of the program. So there's definitely need for a collaboration of all the stakeholders, which is what the policy will push out for. It will involve everybody from all levels. At some point, the OLPC, like my colleague mentioned, the idea was that, this is going to be a magic wand, if I should use that word, that will just change everything. But with time, we've realized that there's so many elements that are combined within the one laptop per child, or within the idea of using technology in schools. When a kid leaves primary, what else does he have to face? Once the kid faces the first time, what else do they need to be aware of? In terms of content filtering, for example, if you give kids access to the internet, you need to provide some sort of support. So awareness is the key for me, again, that every stakeholder should come in. And on the side of...
I'm sorry, we have to stop there. But I'm picking quite a number of things here. Awareness, understanding, engaging the stakeholders, stimulating that ownership, especially among teachers who come into direct contact with the pupils in the schools. We have to stop there for now. I'd like to thank our guests, Eric, Valence, and Rama. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. My name is Flora Kaitesi. You've been watching Primetime Live. Next is the news. Good night for now.